This week on Paint It Black, I take a look at the issue that has made headlines over the past few weeks. Deaths in custody is something that affects all Australians. However, the overrepresentation of Indigenous Australians in prison has led to the overrepresentation of black deaths in custody. Off the bat, I want to state that in this video, I'm going to speak straight from the heart as a black Australian, not as a journalist. The recent outcome of the JC trial has completely broken my heart and left me feeling like my life doesn't matter. Since 1991, there have been more than 470 black deaths in custody, but not one person has been sent to jail for the deaths that many believe could have been prevented. Right now, many First Nations peoples are feeling hopeless, tired, frustrated, but most of all, defeated. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander viewers are warned that this episode includes images and names of deceased peoples, and it will discuss a triggering and emotional topic. Viewer discretion is advised. For the first time in decades, we've recently had 2 Australian police officers charged with murder over 2 separate black deaths in custody cases. There was the officer who can't be identified for legal reasons in the trial of JC, who was shot dead in Geraldton, and Zach Rolfer, who is set to stand trial for the death of Mr. Walker in the NT. As the Walker trial is yet to take place, I will refrain from commenting for both legal reasons and on the direction of his family. The outcome of the trial of JC, which took place here in Perth last week, sparked protests across the country. Although many thought the officer would get off on his charges, there was a lot of hope that some form of accountability would be met. Unfortunately, no one was held accountable.
After 2.5 weeks on trial, the first WA police officer to be charged with murder in almost 100 years was today cleared.
As much as I want to claim JC's death was racially driven, I think the bigger picture in this case is that the training for West Australian police officers is not good enough, and it's putting all of us First Nations peoples in danger. JC's family called the police because they thought they would help when she was having a mental health breakdown. But instead, a child is going to grow up with no mother and probably fear the people who serve and protect.
Don't ever ask for welfare check on your family when they're in mental health state. Don't ever.
As more details came out during the trial, I, like many others, were left shocked by how little time the officer who killed the Yamaji mother had been on the scene prior to shooting her dead. The officer was one of 8 who had responded to reports of a woman holding a knife on that fateful day in 2019. He was the last one on the scene, and he ran towards JC with his gun drawn and fired his weapon only 16 seconds after getting out of his vehicle. But the sad thing is, we've been here before. A black Australian died at the hands of a police officer in a regional town in Western Australia, and an all-white jury acquitted the officers of his murder. John Pat was expected to be the leader for his people, the Yindjibarndi people. But instead, he became part of the legacy of the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody. The Royal Commission was called after public outcry over the lack of explanation to the high number of black deaths in custody. 99 Indigenous deaths in custody were examined across the country. A key finding from the Royal Commission was that it wasn't that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were more likely to die in custody. It was that they were more likely to be in custody. In most deaths in custody cases, it is the victim who ends up on trial and not the offender. This was the case for Miss Dhu, Mr. Ward, and now for JC. I am also sick and tired of the general public feeling like black Australians are to blame for their own deaths. Or Miss Dhu should have paid her fines. Or JC shouldn't have had a knife. Or them boys in the Swan River shouldn't have ran from the police. Or Miss Wynne shouldn't have jumped out of the ambulance. Well, you know what? I'm not going to stand for it anymore. The police in South Hedland should have treated Miss Dhu with respect and not have called her a junkie and influenced the opinion of hospital staff. In the case of JC, with already multiple officers on the scene, the officer should have given himself more than 16 seconds to assess the situation before shooting a mother dead. We should be looking at why those boys ran and the inherited fear that they have of the police due to the history in Western Australia. And Miss Wynne, she was initially mistaken for another black woman because apparently we all look alike. Look, I'm not saying that all police are bad, but we are so sick and tired of no one being held accountable. The thing is, most of us blackfellas know that any of those almost 500 deaths in custody cases could easily be our family members if they aren't already. We know that our skin colour makes a difference to how we are treated. Because of the unconscious biasness that is within the police force, that even the Commissioner admitted to being there, we run a risk of losing our lives during an interaction with them. Don't believe me? Just look at Miss Dew, who was taken to the hospital and even the staff couldn't look past her skin colour. I lived in Port Hedland and I still have family who live there, and I am fearful for their health when they have to visit the hospital. Because why wouldn't I be? You can't tell me that our lives matter when the day before the JC verdict was handed down, WA Premier Mark McGowan announced a compensation scheme for WA police officers. You can't tell me that our lives matter when the police send out their black officers to deal with the crowd because they don't have a good relationship with black people and would rather be tokenistic than address the issue. The justice system of this country needs to change, because I'll be damned if another generation of my people die at the hands of the people who are meant to protect us. Thanks for watching. I know this was a really tough topic, but this is something we need to discuss and we need to move forward and find a solution for all of us. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and be sure to pick up a copy of The West Australian on Monday to read my opinion pieces.